Hey, how are you? Today we're going to be talking about the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs, which I find to be one of the craziest stories from history because it's the closest thing to an alien invasion human beings have ever experienced. First, a little backstory on the conquest. Cortez was married to the mayor of Cuba's sister-in-law and was granted permission to take an expedition to explore Mexico. However, when the mayor realized Cortez had been cheating on his sister-in-law and was just a scumbag in general, his charter was revoked. But Cortez just pretended not to hear the orders, and in an act of mutiny, embarked on his journey anyways. Apparently the mayor ran to the docks to try to stop him, but was too late and witnessed Cortez flipping him the bird as he sailed off into the sunset. "Smell you later, sucker!" Now, prior to Cortez landing on the coast of what is now Mexico, the Spanish and Aztecs had zero idea each other existed, which led to quite a few what the fuck moments once they arrived. For instance, the Aztecs had never seen a horse before, so when the Spaniards showed up riding them, they legit thought the human and animal were one creature, like a centaur or some shit. Others thought they were gigantic deer, with one Aztec messenger reporting back to Emperor Montezuma, "These deer, our lord, are as tall as the roof of a fucking house, dude." The Spaniards also arrived with war dogs. Now, the Aztecs had dogs, but they were of the tiny hairless variety, ancestors of the modern-day Chihuahua. The Spanish war dogs, on the other hand, were gigantic mastiffs clad in chainmail and iron plates that had been trained since pups to hunt and eat humans. So it's understandable the Aztecs thought they were some species of dragon or jaguar. Seeing their first pale-skinned human with blonde hair and a bushy beard must have been weird enough, but seeing that pale human riding a mutant deer with a couple of war jaguars by his side, downright horrifying. Now, the Aztecs weren't the only ones having their minds blown in this encounter, as when the Spaniards waltzed into the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan for the first time, they were astonished to find a city larger, cleaner, and more impressive than any they had ever seen in Europe. Built on an island in the middle of a lake, it was pretty much the Venice of America, filled with temples, canals, aqueducts, floating gardens, and a marketplace occupied by 60,000 people selling everything under the sun. When the conquistadors got a tour of the temples, they found the floors stained black with human blood. Because if you remember from the first episode, the Aztecs loved human sacrifice just as much as they loved tripping balls on shrooms. They believed that if they didn't feed their sun god Huitzilopochtli enough human hearts and blood, he'd just say fuck it and stop rising every morning. So at all their religious ceremonies, they'd sacrifice thousands upon thousands of war captives, many of which came from their rival city-state, Tlaxcala. Needless to say, the Tlaxcalans weren't the biggest fans of the Aztecs, so when Hernan Cortez decided to conquer Tenochtitlan and claim it for Spain, they were more than willing to help. Yep, contrary to popular belief, Cortez and 500 of his men did not defeat the Aztec Empire on their own. They had help from a couple 100,000 Tlaxcalan allies, and smallpox. Also contrary to popular belief, there is no definite proof that Montezuma and the Aztecs actually thought Cortez and his men were gods. That was most likely made up after the fact by the Aztecs to justify why they didn't take up arms against the conquistadors earlier and subsequently got their asses kicked. The Aztecs did frequently douse Cortez's crew with incense, which they may have seen as a sign they thought he and his men were from the heavens, but in reality, they just thought the Spanish smelled like absolute dog shit. And can you blame them? The Aztecs took pride in their cleanliness, bathing once or twice a day, whereas Europeans at that time were lucky to bathe once or twice a year. Clean it up, guys. Now, to make a long story short, relations quickly soured between the Aztecs and the Spanish, probably because Cortez and his men took Montezuma hostage and murdered a bunch of Aztec noblemen, and were thus banished from Tenochtitlan. The Spaniards then turned around and laid siege to the city, and after months of depriving its residents of food and water, infecting everyone with smallpox, and launching numerous naval and land attacks on the island, the Spanish were finally able to force the Aztecs to surrender. To punish them for resisting so fiercely, and to really hit home the point, your gods suck, our gods rule, Cortez ordered every temple and majestic building in the city razed to the ground, and on top of the ruins began building what is now Mexico City. Talk about a downgrade. I hope it gives you guys comfort that if an advanced alien race ever discovers Earth, which according to the CIA may have already happened, we'll probably suffer the same fate as the Aztecs and have our civilization and culture wiped off the map. Unless, of course, Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith can figure out how to give them a computer virus first. Sweet dreams, everybody.